right, I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar, Introducing Mobile Device Management. My name is Kristen, and I'm going to be walking you through the first part, talking a little bit about Awareness's new mobile device management software. I'm going to then hand the controls over to Stephen, who's going to be walking you through the interface and answering any questions that you might have. Just a few pieces of housekeeping. Everyone is currently on mute, so if you do have any questions, feel free to type those into the questions section of the GoToMeeting, and we will answer those at the end of the webinar. This webinar is also being recorded, so if you'd like to have a copy of it afterwards, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll provide some contact information and let us know that you want to have a copy of it or if you have any additional questions. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get started. So why MDM? Why does mobile device management matter? Well, as I'm sure you're aware, mobile devices have become more prolific in recent years. It's really hard to see a business operating anymore without every employee really having some kind of smartphone or smart device. Whereas, even a few years ago, if you went back, maybe it was just upper management that had something like a BlackBerry, something fancy like that, and everybody else had those flip phones. But now, pretty much everybody has smartphones, have access to that. And really, these smartphones have the same access level, the same info level as a traditional computer. They can do all the things that your traditional computer can do. They can email, they can web surf, they can get copies of files saved to them, they can access Dropbox. So they're really basically little computers in your hand. The problem is that unlike a regular computer, which tends to sit in your office and you have a level of control over it, these mobile devices are much harder to lock down, and in part because of the mobile nature of them, right? They're always out, they're always about, they're in people's pockets, they're walking out of the office with them, they're going on vacation with them. So whether they're BYOD, so your users are bringing their own devices into the company, or if they're company provided, there's still a need to lock down these computers and to put these little mobile computers and put some controls in place so that if you're going to be accessing company data, whether you're accessing it on a desktop or a laptop, that you have a level of control and audit off of those devices, regardless of what kind of device it is. So one of the questions we always get is anyone doing this kind of thing? So this is from Gartner, this talks a little bit about the market share in millions of dollars. So in 2013, it was about $780 million. In 2014, it's $1.6 billion. So this is an industry that's growing. Companies are constantly adding mobile device management into their infrastructure. It's something that I think your average employee is going to be familiar with, whether they come from a different company or whether their spouse or friend or whatever might have a company that's putting this on their devices. So it's something that's out there. I don't think it's going to be something that people are too unfamiliar with or nervous about seeing or being talked about. So one of the things we say is that, we talk a lot about internal security. And so we have this little guy here, and this is your chief security officer. And he's put a lot of investment into all these computers and putting security into all those computers. And he's pretty happy. He's pretty pleased with what he's done. And then all of a sudden, everybody starts walking in with their mobile devices, and they want to add the ability to access their email or their VPN or whatever it might be onto these devices. So all of a sudden, you add these mobile devices, and they're completely outside of the security infrastructure that CSO has already put into place. So now your happy CSO goes to being a sad CSO because there's no security put in place for those mobile devices. So that's really where we're coming in, and we're saying, the same place that you're managing your computers, your laptops, your desktops, whatever it might be, why don't you manage your phones too and kind of have it be in one company, have it be one view, have the ability to recover and wipe and control the devices, those iOS and those Android devices, the same way that you would have the ability to do that with your laptops and your desktops. And to really provide you a complete internal threat prevention model so that you don't all of a sudden have this one thing that's made your smiley face turn into a frowny face. So Stephen's going to go into a lot more detail on this, but what I want to point out just at the very beginning is some of the key capabilities that we have inside of our mobile device management solution. So with us, you're going to be able to push and control applications. You're going to be able to remotely wipe or remotely lock those phones or iPads or whatever it might be in case they're lost or stolen. Lock down different features, so allowing or disallowing certain things that the phone can and can't do. You're going to have the ability to manage these folks as groups. You're not going to have to go in and set those policies for each individual person. And then you're going to have notification emails that let you know what's going on with those devices. So very similar if you're familiar with the current InterGuard suite of services, very similar kind of feel and subset, but really more towards just those mobile devices. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over now to Steven. I'm going to let him do the demo. And as I mentioned before, please feel free to type those questions into the GoToWebinar, and we will address all those questions at the end of the demo as well. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Steven.
Hi, my name is Steven. Today I'll be showing you the Mobile Device Management Control Console, how to configure mobile device management for your organization, and how to configure those devices. To get started, we'll be logging into mdm.sonarcentral.com. This will be the main control console for the mobile device management software. So the first place to look is under Devices. So I'm logged into the console currently right now. Under the Devices section, there's a Management subsection. The first thing that needs to be done to configure mobile device management is to generate an MDM certificate. Now we've made this very simple for you. All that needs to be done is to submit your company and contact information directly through this site. So as an example, I have a company called CNN down here below. It currently says that Apple Mobile Device Management has not yet been set up. So I'll quickly walk through this process of how this gets accomplished. So on this step one right here, we need to generate a CSR request for the company that is requesting the mobile device management software. So we just need some basic information about the company. In this case, company information, email address, phone number, contact information. Once these fields are filled out, simply submit the generate my certificate signing request to generate the CSR request, and we will basically handle the rest at this point. Once the CSR has been authenticated, the next step is getting this to your devices. Under the Devices section, we can actually take a look and see how this is accomplished. From here you can see that there are multiple ways to actually enroll your devices in the MDM service. The easiest one, and the one that's probably most likely to be used, is using a mobile configuration file. So once the CSR is generated and that process has been completed, a mobile config file will be provided to you. And then this file can be emailed or distributed through other means, such as a SMS message, and the device in question can simply launch the file and go through the process of registering the device to your mobile device management product. So as an example, if somebody has an iPad device that needs to be enrolled in your company's MDM product, they simply will receive this file, open it on their iPad, a prompt will appear on their screen that they'll need to accept the prompt, and then just like that, they will be enrolled in the product, and you will see their device at the lower portion of this screen here. Another option to enroll a device would be to simply direct the user to this website, where they'll be able to use the account credentials to log in and enroll their device directly into the product that way. So since I've already enrolled a device before this demo, you will see at the lower portion of my window here that there are a couple of devices that are currently enrolled. One of these devices is an iPad device, as I mentioned. As you can see, it gives me an overview of some information regarding this iPad. So I have the model information, version number, what organization it's currently assigned to, the name that Apple gives the actual device. So to go into the actual control of this device, I simply click on the device itself. And you will see that we're getting into the device details. So there's some more additional information here going into really very in-depth as to the serial numbers, models, device name as we already mentioned, specifics on the version of the iOS software that's currently installed on here, everything down to the battery level that's currently in use on that device. So you'll be able to see this information in near real time as some of this information will change rapidly depending on the actual data. So I want to focus right here on some of these easy to access buttons towards the top of this window. As you can see, some of these have to do with checking in with the device. So this first button is to refresh the basic device information. So if something has changed, you'd like to refresh that information, that can be done directly from here. Refreshing all the device's information. So if a device is recently upgraded its version, you can refresh all of that content directly from this button here. Some information regarding AirPlay mirroring. This has to do more with the Apple TV product and won't likely be used with typical iOS devices. Locking device, so locking the device that's currently out in the field. So if someone's currently using a device, you can actually set a lock to it. If it is passcode protected and encrypted, then you're basically forcing the encryption on the device. So if a device does disappear, you can simply lock it this way. If the device has a passcode enabled, which is not a requirement by Apple, but can be forced by using the mobile device management product, you can actually clear the passcode directly from this button here that you see on my screen. And then there are the device wipe selections. So if a device does go missing or the user is no longer authorized to use the device, you can simply wipe the information off the device by using one of these two options. A corporate wipe, as you can see from this button I'm currently highlighting right now, will remove all applications, provisioning profiles, any sort of device settings that are controlled through the mobile device management product. A full device wipe, on the other hand, will reset the device back to its factory settings. So it will remove just about everything. So these are just some kind of highlights. We can actually go into the various restrictions directly from this section here. So in the restrictions, you can see that there's a wide range of different restrictions that can be held on the actual device. Everything from preventing the allowing of installing applications to using certain features on the device such as Siri, the camera, so we can actually lock down usage of the camera on the device. Specifically, we can actually lock down the usage of FaceTime and force the user to just use the standard phone app without the FaceTime addition. Using of iMessage, so iMessage, also known as iChat, is a messaging application that is used on iOS devices. So that in supervised mode can actually be disabled. I'll go into supervised mode a little bit later and how that differs from a standard mobile device management device. Allow reporting of diagnostic information, so basically information that is sent to Apple automatically can be disabled. Allowing explicit content, so this is more of a filtering. So in the Apple restriction settings on a device, you can actually prevent the accessing of explicit content. This will actually force that feature to be on and prevent the user from being able to disable it. For games, there's additional restrictions for games. Again, this is for supervised mode, but we can actually lock down some specifics about gaming on the devices, including allowing multiplayer gaming and adding Game Center friends from the Game Center service. Allowing of screenshots, so with iOS devices, typically with iPads specifically, there are hotkeys that can be done with certain key combinations to take screenshots. So that can actually be locked down. We can actually prevent the user from taking screenshots on the device. Allowing the use of YouTube. YouTube is obviously a very popular application using for access web video content, so we can actually disable that directly from here. Allowing use of the iTunes Music Store. So the iTunes Music Store obviously is the place where iTunes Music is purchased. We can actually disable access to iTunes Music Store directly from here without preventing the user from having any sort of restriction to the App Store. So if they need to install specific applications and not access the iTunes Store, we can disable that feature directly from here. Requiring an iTunes password for all purchases. So that basically forces the password value to yes for any time that a iTunes download is requested. Allowing use of the Safari browser. Safari is the most popularly used browser for most iOS devices. If you'd like to force the user to use a different browser, you can actually disable the usage of Safari entirely. In this case, if a feature like this were to be enabled, on the user's iOS device, they would no longer see the Safari icon. It would basically disappear. So for Safari, there's some additional details that we can manage. Accepting the use of cookies. So as you can see, you can change that to from visited sites only or to never to prevent cookies from being stored on the device. Allowing autofill, so you can disable autofill, basically preventing the user from saving a password into a web form. Allowing JavaScript applications to run within the web browser, so you can disable JavaScript entirely from loading in certain websites. Allowing of pop-up windows, so we can disable pop-up windows from firing on certain websites. Force a fraud warning. So in terms of SSL certificates and other sort of authentication that can identify fraud sites, we can actually force that warning. This is an optional feature in Safari, so if the user has that disabled, you can actually just force it to be enabled. Allow accepting of untrusted TLS certificates. So that's also known as SSL certificates. So basically we can either allow or deny the trusting of those untrusted certificates from untrusted signing authorities. Allowing of iCloud backups. So if this were to be unchecked, the user would not be able to have the option to back up to iCloud, basically disabling that feature entirely. Allow iCloud document syncing. This is a relatively new feature. This has to do with syncing of iCloud documents within, I believe, the new iCloud Drive and across multiple iOS devices. So that can be enabled or disabled. Allowing keychain syncing to iCloud. So allowing keychain syncing, a lot of times a user will store passwords in their keychain and then they can sync that to their iCloud for other iOS devices. We can either allow or disallow that feature. Allowing PhotoStream. PhotoStream is a way for users to basically use the photos that they've taken on their devices across Wi-Fi connections and use them on other devices such as Apple TVs and other devices that are compatible. So you can actually disable this feature, and as you can see, there's a warning here that it can cause data loss. I believe if the user is in the midst of using this feature, that could occur. Allowing of the bookstore. So the iOS bookstore can actually be disabled, again also in supervised mode. There are some specifics that can be disabled as well. As we can see here, we can disable the erotica section of the bookstore as more of an adult content. Allow passbook while locked. So this is, again, more of a password related situation. So if the actual device is locked, we can do some additional restrictions. Allow shared photo streams. So sharing photo streams while the user is basically sharing it with other users, we can disable them from sharing that. Allow installation of configured profiles. So allowing the user profile installation through configuration files. This is more of a specified request, but under certain circumstances we can actually control this. Allow background fetch while roaming. Allow in-app purchases, so we can actually prevent purchases from being purchased through applications themselves. In-application purchases, we can lock those down. Allow voice dialing, so we can actually disable that feature. Force encrypted backups, forcing encrypted information in the iCloud backups, so that can be forced to be enabled. Allow application ratings. You can see here that there are some specific ratings, so this is for more content control. So if we wanted to set this to 17+, basically we're controlling which applications can be installed based off of their age, minimum age requirement. Allow movie ratings. So again, this is pretty similar to the app ratings. So we can kind of lock down the movies that are downloaded based off of their actual rating. The region. So right now, it's only compatible with the United States, so we can force users only to have access to US content. TV ratings, similarly to movies, we have some similar rating restrictions. Getting down to some more supervised mode only options, basically account modifications, AirDrop, allow Siri to query user-generated content from the web, allow changes to cellular data usage settings, allow Find My Friends modification. So these are all some additional settings that can only be done under the supervised mode. I'll get into that a little bit later. Allow Touch ID to unlock the device. So for touch-enabled iOS devices, where the fingerprint can unlock the device, we can allow or disallow that feature. Allow pairing with hosts other than the supervision host. Again, that's a supervised only. Allow control center access from the lock screen. So control center access, when the screen is locked, that can be allowed or disallowed. Allow notification view in the notification center on the lock screen. So the ability to view notifications while the screen is locked. Allow Today view in Notification Center. So the Today overview with the calendar information, that can be disallowed. Allow documents and managed apps and accounts to open the unmanaged apps and accounts. So this is really kind of very specific information here. We can actually control down to how document behavior in managed and unmanaged apps works. And then just rounding this out, allowing over-the-air updates and forcing limited ad tracking. So these are just some other features that we have. So to quickly go over the difference between regular and supervised mode, supervised mode requires that the device be tethered to a Mac device. It is an additional step that Apple requires that then unlocks some additional features. So if there's any interest in supervised mode only features that we had covered here, that can be done. It just requires an additional step of having a Mac device to be able to tether that device to for the first time before unlocking those features. Okay, so let's move on to security. And in the security section, we see some additional information regarding the devices. So for those of you not familiar with iOS, when a passcode is set on a device, it actually enables encryption. So we can confirm that the encryption is enabled directly from the security tab. So it tells us the hardware encryption, block and file level encryption. If there was a different type of encryption, it would show it here as well. For jailbreaking, jailbreaking is something that basically allows the user to kind of get into the device in certain ways that Apple does not want them to. It does require voiding the warranty on devices. So we do monitor jailbreak signature detection. If there is any signature detection for jailbreaking, it will show up here. It looks like for this device in particular, there has been no signatures for jailbreaking. Passcodes, if there's a passcode enabled on the device, this will be set to true. If you set a compliance so that the device does need to have a passcode for it to be compliant, this will either tell you if that is true or false. So in this case, it looks like I do not have any sort of passcode compliance because the passcode is disabled and it is compliant. Passcode compliant with profiles, that's just if there are multiple profiles on the device, then set the passcode as part of the compliance. So we can always update the passcode policy directly from here or change the enforcement of the passcode policy. By updating the passcode policy, if there's any changes that are made, that will then force the update directly to the device. It will check in directly at that time or the next time that the device is powered on, and then it will make those updates from what has been changed in the restrictions tab. So kind of rounding out this section, under the application section here, we can just see the different apps that are currently installed on the selected device. So from here we can see that this is the friendly name of the app, everything from Skype, Facebook, Safari, the specific identifier that Apple gives these programs. And also for certain applications that are downloaded directly from the App Store, we actually get versioning information. So if we wanted to know the specific version that is running on this device, we will know that directly from this section. Okay, Okay, so moving on to the details, we just went over this before. Let me just scroll down to the bottom. We'll just cover everything here. We get even the Wi-Fi MAC address if there is a Bluetooth MAC address. That is also acquired by the software. And again, the passcode compliance and serial numbers, model numbers, and things like that with the device. So this is more device restriction, but I think this is a good time to segue into device groups. So if we go to the Devices tab once again, and then we go ahead and go to the Pools section, which is the second tab up here, up at the top, we'll see that there is a Device Pools. Now, device pools really can be looked at more as groups. It's really where you can put multiple devices in the same pool in this case, and then manage the pool and have all those devices update appropriately. So in this case, it looks like for this account and for this username, I have one device pool that has one device currently in it. So I see it is currently a password protected device. It has MDM enabled. If I needed to download the mobile configuration files I mentioned earlier on this session to distribute to different devices, I could download it directly from here. If I had to edit this device pool, we could simply edit it. And you can see that there's some specific restrictions that we can set with the device pool. These restrictions will look pretty similar to some of the specific device restrictions that we just went over. It's just in this case, these restrictions will take effect for the entire pool or group of devices instead of the individual devices. So this will be a lot more helpful in circumstances where you have multiple devices as opposed to just one or two devices. So rounding out this account, if we go into the People section, we can actually add additional users to the account. So in this case, we go to the Invite More Users. We'll select the company, in this case, the demo company called CNN. From the Invite Users section, we can add additional users to the portal by putting in their email addresses here. Any sort of a personal note that will accompany their request will also be can be added here. There are three types of privileges that can be set for users. So a user could be an administrator who has access to modify all projects, account settings, and invite additional users to the account. A team member, which can access, modify, and invite team members only to the projects you have assigned them to. Or a basic user. The basic users can only download projects that you have given them access to. Any sort of a privilege for a user can be modified again after the user is created. So you can see here access to all projects. So if you wanted to, this is basically telling you if you have multiple projects based off of the current configuration, which projects they will have access to. Now once you submit this request to invite additional users, those users will receive an email with a link that will send them directly to this site. They will then be able to create a username and a password appropriately, and then be able to log in and have the required access that you've given them to the MDM portal. So from there, I think we've covered just about everything with the devices. So just to recap, configuring MDM for a company requires the filling out of a certificate signing request. That certificate signing request will be reviewed by us, in which case we will then verify with Apple that information. Once we get acceptance of that CSR request, we will then notify you, and then we will provide you with a personalized mobile configuration file that can be distributed through various means, both through email and through SMS messages to the various device owners. Those device owners will then be able to walk through very easily a prompt on their iOS devices to be able to install the mobile configuration file and then tether them to the mobile device management account. Once they're created, you'll be able to create additional pools or groups, in which case the devices will fall into, and then you can modify those settings from the pool or group level. Once those devices are in their specific pools, you'll then be able to add additional users that have access to the account. and then make any sort of adjustments or settings changes to those users. The last step is basically going over notifications. So in the account level, we can actually set up notifications. So for the different notifications, there are daily email notifications and weekly email notifications. So a daily email notification basically will go over some of the more high priority settings and features from the mobile device management software. A weekly email will basically be a cumulative email over the past week. So some of these things have to do with passcode compliance, encryption levels, things like that we went over earlier in the restriction settings. And you can see here that there's some more general notification settings. If new versions are updated, specifically if there's any crash reports, things like that that may be experienced on the devices, those take a higher priority. In this last tab here, you'll just be able to see that there's these user session information. So when a user logs into the portal, we actually track that information and the IP address that they use to log into. So as an administrator, you'll be able to have full access to the other users that are logging into this account, be able to see the specific information and be able to revoke access at any given time if need be, directly from this activity section. This last section here is just basic profile information, so profile information on yourself as the user, as the administrator. So you can put some additional contact information, some specific, you can upload an avatar, those kinds of things. That has to do specifically with the user profile. And then we get back to the account level, which will just be the specific company contact information and the settings associated with that account. We can always update those settings directly from here. As in this case, we'll see that the billing information will be set as the billing will be through Awareness Technologies, and your company information will be here. So I think that wraps up just about everything with the web portal for the mobile device management software. If there's any questions, feel free to reach out to our support team. The support information can be provided by reaching out to sonarsupport@awareness-technologies.com. We also have some information that can be distributed on the mobile device management console. And if you have any questions, please feel free to state these questions directly here after the webinar, and we will be answering them live after the webinar session has been completed. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of your day.